Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
All right, Chris Prefontaine. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Excited to meet you. For people who haven't heard about you or the things that you're doing, I guess give us a little bit of information on your background and what exactly your business looks like. So I'm really excited to hear about what you have going on.
Yeah, so at the risk of dating myself, this is my 32nd year in the lovely real estate world full time. So that runs the gamut. What we're doing now, and we can go back to any piece of this, but what we're doing now since the 2008 crash is we buy everything creatively. We call it buying on terms. So we don't use banks. I learned the hard way when you sign your name personally, what happens if there's a headache with the bank or the market. And so I don't do that anymore, very simply. I mean, ever. We buy everything owner financing, subject to existing financing or lease purchase. So we control anywhere between like 75 and 100 million in property at any one time between us and our students, because we rev share with our students. And those are never bank loans. So I put my head on the pillow at night, a little different than it was 08, 09, 10, when we had all those headaches going on.
Nice.
Wow, that was really cool. So any relation to
I got up one of these days, Dan, find out, but I don't, not technically, I don't know, but
you gotta go to ancestry.com.
Well, that would be a really distant relation, because I'm pretty sure he died, when he was like 25?
In the 70s.
24?
Yeah. But I also think he was French Canadian. I'm pretty sure he was, which we are.
Yeah.
There you go.
But no, that would be like a distant cousin or something. No, that's cool. So you've been in for a long time, 32 years. I will say that it is rare to find people that are still actively, I guess, in the hustling in the real estate game that have been around for that long. I feel like most people who are doing real estate,
or they're not innovating.
They're definitely not doing anything new.
Anymore.
If anything, they're retired, or they are just have their narrow buy box that worked for them 30 years ago, and they stay in that.
I agree. I agree.
So So I guess how did you initially get into it? First off, so long ago, because it wasn't nearly as common as it is now to do real estate investing. And how did what does that evolution look like? So you've seen so many different changes in the market, the economy, everything.
Yeah, I'll give a 10,000 foot view. And again, if we want to peel back the onion at any point, tell me. So 91, my dad, I grew up in a welding supply business. It wasn't even real estate, welding supply and industrial gas, but he built his own buildings. So I saw him do that, and he'd bring me to him when I was young. And then he explained to me once, I think I was like 10, he explained to me that he builds these and he leases them to the company, the welding supply company. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're both you. I didn't get it when I was young, but as I get older, I understood what he was doing. And then he would hang out with people that dabbled in real estate on the side of their businesses. And so that was what I was around. So even during college, I was in college, but I was always tinkering and reading and wanting to do real estate. Did my first deal in 91. He sold the company. I supposedly had a job as a general manager, and I got fired in 3 weeks. My kids were 2 and 3, and I had Zippo. So that was my foray into real estate, been full-time ever since. After that, had a brokerage, sold that to Coldwell Banker, and then ran up through the crash by coaching people around U.S. and Canada. And that was realtors back then. I had a realtor hat on back then, a broker hat on. And of course, now it's all investors. But that's what we did right up to the crash. And as I said earlier, that the crash made us re-engineer the entire business to what it is today. So you couldn't have convinced me that in 08. But looking back in hindsight, best thing that ever happened, because what we've got going on now is totally different in the industry, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But we are out in the trenches doing deals with students, which is dramatically different than just marketing and selling stuff, and not supporting that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
Yeah. So you kind of cover the full gambit. So, I mean, you teed it up a little bit there. You said that what's happening right now is completely different than what happened in 2008. I mean, I feel like most people who are active investors feel that way, right? That sort of understand the basic economics of real estate. But also too, most of us that say that, this us included, we weren't around investing in 2008. So we don't know for sure. We're looking at the fundamentals, but I guess from you having gone through that, what makes you say that? What are the key differences, do you think?
Yeah. So a lot of that was, and listen, I don't get into the media and the economics and all that crap because the billionaires don't know what's going to happen. So certainly you and I don't, but just my opinion is you had a major banking / foreclosure issue. Then you don't have that same capacity, that same issue right now. There's some high points there, no priority order there. This is the third time in 50 years right now where it's an affordability problem exists. And if an affordability problem exists already, and the interest rates maybe to some people are obnoxious, but they're not. The 50-year average is like 7.7, or I'm close with that. So if we're not there yet, and there's already an affordability problem, that means that screams loudly that the buyers, especially, and so likewise the ripple effect of the sellers, they need creative real estate more than they ever did. When I started in the 90s, about 3% of the transactions, ballpark, nationwide, were done outside of banks. That number's up in the teens now. And I search high and low to find a hard stat, and I get different stats, but it's way more. In the next 3 to 5 year window is going to be rampant demand for creative finance. And here's why I know that, Mike, and I'll toss it back to you. It's interesting. Our community is kind of a microcosm of society in a way, because I've got people from West Coast to East Coast. And so when I get on a weekly call on Zoom, I'll get the feedback from all the markets. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I see what pockets are slowing down. So when I start seeing that all over the nation, people are just coming out of the woodwork now that thought the market was fat and happy, sellers and buyers who need our help more than ever. So it's an interesting time right now in creative real estate. And there's a lot of fix and flip big companies that are calling us too now, and there's 2 more in the works, that are calling us going, look, we realize our limitations. Can you help our community learn how to do creative real estate? Because we're kind of stuck without it. And so that's telling me big time that there's a demand for what we got going on here. And I knew that, but that's proof.
So I got a quick question then. You're talking about that there's an affordability issue and that rates aren't crazy high, which I agree. They're not that crazy high. They're not compared to what they could be. So how does creative financing help with that affordability issue for the buyers?
Okay, let's just paint a micro scenario in there that does hit a lot of people. So the rates, let's just say 9 months, whatever it was ago, I have a son-in-law and daughter with 2 grandkids, and they were looking at houses back then when rates were in the 3s, right? They sold and then they were looking. All of a sudden, whammo. Now they could afford it still, luckily, but there are a lot of families, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of families, that sadly got pushed to the sidewalk, so to speak. They can't buy. They think they can't buy. So now they can buy with creative real estate, because what do they need? If they have a down payment and they were qualifying the 3 or 4% range, one of the things they need, if everything else, credit's good, all that, is they need a bigger down payment if they want the same exact house. Well, we give them that opportunity to get into a house, take their time to save up more, and then cash it out when they're mortgage ready. While that's going on, though, all these sellers that had the demand, they don't have the same demand. I mean, that's playing right across the market now, from a flat to a 20% decrease in most markets that I'm seeing in my community. So a lot of this, that's where the sellers, when I say they come out of the woodwork, they're not getting the same demand. And the press is helping us, you and I and everyone else that invests in real estate, because they're screaming recession and all this other crap that they don't know is going to happen, and the sellers are panicking. And so they're calling us going, help, help. So that's helping us, but it's just a bunch of nonsense in my eyes. It's a long answer. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I think, no, that's great. It's in alignment with an article I recently read from NAR, the National Association of Realtors, where they talk about something Mike and I have been speculating about too, is like 2023 is going to be kind of like this stalemate because of what you said. Like the sellers, their demand's gone, but they thought like last year I could just sell my house for whatever I want. And maybe this year they're ready. And along with that, like stalemate is that, they think there's going to be like 14% less sales next year, depressed sales because of that, because sellers don't have an outlet to sell their property and buyers they have an affordability issue. And so what you're saying, this is kind of that solution that helps keep
and here's where we come in too. So a lot of the fix and flip and wholesalers have to get in. We all know at like 60, 70 cents on the dollar, right? I'm on a call with a seller and I can feel the energy drop, meaning go away. The wall breaks down, because I say, look, no, I'm not trying to lowball you. I can actually get you your price as long as I get my term. And they have a discussion. And so a third of the properties in the United States right now are debt free. They're free and clear. Well, those people are excited to talk about creative real estate. They want their price. Call it ego, call it financial savvy, call it whatever you want. They want their price. I can give them their price if I get the right term. I'm sitting in my building right now talking to you guys. I own this building and I bought it from a seller who was free and clear. and I bought it with owner financing, with no underwriting, no huge down payment, like just what we teach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's super cool. And there's one thing that stood out to me too from what you're saying there before is you're talking about making it more affordable for like the general population. I think that that's a different. So that's obviously your exit, right? Is how you are, selling the properties or putting, lease to own or whatever that looks like in place. But that's a different view than I've heard from other people who preach creative, where everyone else who leans in that creative stuff, it's always like, here's how you can get super good rates for yourself so that you can make a spread as a rental. So that exit strategy that you're looking at, where you're making it more affordable for the general population, what exactly does that look like? Like, I'm very intrigued by that, because like, especially when we talk about sub twos, you hear about selling people being able to buy a property sub two, or like doing these wraps and things like that. But ultimately, the people that are priced out to cover the equity gap that currently exists with the inflated market, even with the lower monthly payment they're seeking, they're going to have a huge down payment, like 40% of a house that they couldn't afford to begin with. Right. So I guess, how are you solving that? Like, what exactly does that look like?
A couple things. Tell me if it answers it, Mike.
Yeah.
So the buyers that, because you're talking about the buying, and let me tell you how it works and see if it leaves any holes. Mm-hmm. When you talk to people, and you guys have probably seen this publicly, this is not like a secret. You go on in podcasts. Sometimes I'll go on a show, like I'll go on yours this morning. I'll listen to some episodes. I'll go on to shows and I'll hear these guys or gals in the creative space going, yeah, I do rent to own as an exit. And I don't care if they cash out, because if they don't cash out, I'll put another one in and collect another deposit. Man, I just cringe, because you're, number one, you're setting up the buyer to fail in a lot of cases. The ratio is like 80 to 90%. Ours is real simple. Our metric, I'll tell you, is 2 to 5% default. Why is it an inverse relationship? My son is the buyer specialist for both our properties and the students, but he's big on, okay, we're going to get them qualified. We're going to get them a mortgage ready plan. If their mortgage ready plan, and if they're a legit buyer, fits within the terms that I have with the seller, okay, we can put them in the house. They're not getting in the house without that work up front, and they're not getting in the house without 3 to 5% down. And if it's like a jumbo loan, or we know they only qualified for their mortgage ready plan with 10% eventually, they're going to get in the house at 3 to 5, but they're going to, throughout the term of their rent to own, they're going to up their deposit so that we get them strong and super ready for that mortgage, and maybe even a better rate, because we're getting them stronger and stronger through the term. So we look to cash them out for sure. Now, some of them, because people say to me that begs the question, okay, well, you cash all your deals out soon. Why don't you stay in some of these? We do. I call it wealth stacking. Once someone has a portfolio, we'll look at it. If the term's long enough, we'll say, all right, the buyers behaved properly. Now we will sell them sell it to them on owner financing. They don't have to go to the bank, and we'll stay in the deal. So now we go from collecting what we call 3 paydays to maybe 4 or 5 or 6, down the road for years and years and years.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So on those sort of exits, are you doing like second position around your existing mortgage, or you actually own them outright at that point?
If we sell to the buyer, meaning on owner financing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So say we bought sub 2, we're going to sell to the buyer. It's going to be a wrap. And we might do it for contract for deed or land contract, or we might actually do a recording of the title.
Okay. So
could you talk?
Oh yeah. So I was going to say, yeah. So you're saying that you buy it sub 2 initially, you do like the rental own process. You're going to sell it again in a wrap. So now you have this sub 2 that has transferred to 2 different individuals. Yeah, I want to dive into that, because that is always the biggest question, is like the due on sale clause, and like the lenders now seeing 2 title transfers. People get worried about one, but now you're going to the second one, which is going to be definitely a less qualified person than you.
Here's how we do it. And let me just qualify this, because this comes up a lot. This is a good topic to bat around, the three of us. This is not for your listeners. This is not legal. This is not accounting advice. This is how we do it. Okay. And I will also say this though. I have banged my head against the wall as recent as 3 months ago with students, because we'll call and help students in a state not far from me, New Jersey, where I had to go through 3 or 4 attorneys who told me flat out, you can't do that in New Jersey. And so then I found an attorney who now operates in 32 states, and they do thousands of these. You just have to find the right attorney. And I say that for the listener who might go to one attorney and get all thrown off that they can't. No, you can do it. So a couple things. My local attorney here, the senior partner is probably early 70s. His junior partner back in 2012 or 13, he had him start doing our deals, creative deals. And at one time, the junior partner went to the senior partner, Rich, my friend, who I have deals with, and said, I can't do these. And he sat him down, and I'll just, in a nutshell, summarize it. He basically said, look, there's no illegal thing about it. This is a contract issue. This is a contractual issue between a bank and a seller, period. That's it. There's nothing illegal, anything about it. It's a contract. Now, when we buy the home, the seller signs multiple disclosures built by those attorneys that acknowledges that there is a due on sale. The fact is, I have never had it in my 31 going on 32 years, a loan called. Why? Because we do what we say we're going to do. We pay the bill. You start not paying the bill. There's investors that have done this, criminally, and just bought a bunch of properties and took off. Okay, well, that stinks for the industry. If you pay your bill and do what you're supposed to do, this should not be a problem. That's been my experience. Now, title issue. So again, this is not legal basis. This is how we do it. We take title. Mike, if I buy your house and your house is 123 Yellow Street, I'm going to put that in a trust. And that trust name is 123 Yellow Street, Dehan Family Trust. That's what's being titled. Is that a, fix all? No. But the Garment St. Germain Act in the 80s allows you to transfer property in family and for estate reasons without a due on sale being triggered. So that's our attorney's logic to have us do it that way. Now, so it's sitting in that trust. When we sell it to the buyer, we can do a number of different things. We prefer a land contract or contract for deed. Different states call it different things because that deed does not get recorded. It sits in escrow. So they don't see a second recording. You see the first recording to a trust situation. Can you also, I'll get a little advanced and crazy here, but can you also, if you were the single person that had a due on sale happen, I haven't yet, but if you were, could you maybe change the beneficiaries? Could you go on deed with this? There's all kinds of things you can do. Your attorney will help you with that. But that's a long answer. I hope that helped a little bit, or did it confuse things?
No, like it. Yeah, I think it helps us
because
we're pretty versed, I guess, on the terminology. There might be some listeners whose brains just exploded, but if you need some help, you reach out to Chris after the show, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram too. No, I mean that all makes sense, and I mean ultimately, it sounds like at the core, what you need is a good attorney to help 100%. You navigate all this stuff.
Spot on.
Yes,
and that is, I think, the biggest challenge too with a lot of people is finding those professionals that actually know how to navigate these sort of things, because like you said, it is a contractual issue. There's always ways to get around it. And especially once you start bringing in legal structures and that sort of stuff. Like I know a super common thing with very high net worth individuals, they don't want to pay taxes, like, short-term capital gains tax on properties. We see that a lot here at Lake Coeur d'Alene, which is a very popular lake where a lot of really, really big names have houses. They'll buy the house with like an LLC. When they sell the LLC, exactly. Yeah. And
I bought a condo here from a guy that is a very large real estate guy around here, like third generation, and he sold me the LLC instead of the condo.
Exactly, yeah. But like what you're describing is almost the same basic concept with the trust, where you're never actually having the title change because you're doing it through that contract to purchase deal.
Yep, one of many ways. But you nailed it, Mike, when you said the attorneys, because I'm telling you, when I found this attorney, she's actually local coincidentally, but she operates in 32 states with her title company. It is a savior. Like, she has saved so many deals for our students that you can't imagine. And so you got to get one and be able to go through the pain of banging your head against the wall with the ones that don't know what they're doing. Instead of saying, I'll refer you to someone, they say you can't do it. It's just they're protecting themselves. And if you're in our community, we'll help hook you up. We've painstakingly gone through that with a lot of the states.
Yeah.
Yep. And regardless, like you mentioned earlier, Chris, there's no actual law. There's no federal law or state law that has anything to do with due on sale. This is a contractual issue between basically the 100%. Note holder and the bank, right? Like that's what it is. And the interesting thing about it is it never says that it will be due on sale. I haven't found any mortgages that say that. They typically say that it could be, or it might be. Those types of like soft language. I don't think that I've ever read one that says like, we will 100% take this if you transfer title. It just
what
says
else,
there's some
guys,
possibilities.
You're spot on, Dan. And what else is the VA loans? I don't know if people understand this. You go read the VA loan, go online right now. There's a mirror mortgage. It's a wrap. There's a mirror mortgage language built in where you can buy that house. They allow it. So people call me and go, can I do this with a VA loan? 100%. Yes, they actually allow it.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's super cool. Yeah.
I do want to ask a question just for our listeners too, because I think the pieces that you're talking about, the sub 2, and then when you talk about seller wrap, when you're exiting it, can you talk through like what that means, kind of the process of the paperwork from a sub 2 to a seller
if you
wrap
do it
on the
that
exit?
way, I'm going to try to do this real simple because you can do this when you buy too. If you're seller, we bought from a school teacher once. I'm sorry to divert a little bit, Dan, but it's going to be a similar answer. So we bought from a school teacher once who his credit was good. So unlike most sub 2s, it wasn't, he had a divorce. He just wanted out of the house. Mm-hmm. So he, A, wanted to protect his credit. So we had to pay the bill, right? B, he wanted to go buy another house. Mm. So if he's going to go buy, most sub 2s go, just take my house. I'm out of here. I'm going to go rent. And they don't care what you do to protect them. But when you know they're going to go buy a house like that, they wanted a wrap put on the house so that if I go to Tahiti and take off and don't pay the bill and my family doesn't pay the bill, he can foreclose and get his house back and not be naked out there. So I said to my attorney, can you structure this wrap? And it's the same answer if you do it with a buyer. So what he did was they call it a mirror with the VA loans, but all you're doing is you're making the amortization schedule on the wrap mirror the underlying debt so that at the end, there's no differential. The exact same principal pay down, the exact same everything. You're putting that structure on just to protect the individual if you default. Does that make sense, guys?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It does. And the wrap would be like a document, or what does that, I guess, legally look like? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, because that gets confusing. All it means is you're recording another mortgage in that property. It's what most people consider a second mortgage. It just happens to have the qualities that describe it now as a mirror or a wrap, but it's a second mortgage going on that property by date.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely tracking. So you say when you're doing that mirror, basically there's not actually additional debt tied to that, like financially, but it is like a security for the sub 2 seller. So that way, if you default on the sub 2 on the mortgage that you're buying subject to, they have the ability to take the house back without having
they can foreclose and get their house back. Yeah. And then, so if they're going to go buy something, you can imagine the bank's conversation. So they go to buy another house and I didn't give them a wrap to secure them. The bank will go like, okay, so on your credit, you have this house. Well, no, I sold it. Really? Okay. So other than the closing paperwork, where's your security? I don't have any. So if they stop paying, your credit goes down the toilet. Yeah. But if you put that wrap on there and you show that to the bank you're going for the new house, I'm not saying they all finance, but what I tell my sellers is shop it. Some banks will finance you. Some will want a year seasoning. Some will cover 75%. Like, you just have to shop it. But yes, you need that instrument to secure it and to prove that you're secure.
That's a really key point for our listeners from a sales standpoint, because that's like, if you have a seller that you want to go sub 2 with that is like really nervous of like you taking it over. I mean, that right there is a great sales pitch from a standpoint of
here's the other way to protect them, guys. 2 ways. On that note, Dan, I've done both. One was a student had me on the phone with a seller in Pennsylvania, and he said, well, that's great, but what if you guys default? I said, we don't. I've been in business 32 years. Some people are okay with that. He said, okay, sounds great, but I don't know you. And I'm going to Texas, and I want my house to be. I said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll put a default agreement. Your attorney can draw it up. It's a paragraph. And it basically says, in essence, if we default after 30 days, no hard feelings, no foreclosure, you go record the deed. We sign a deed back to you with a default agreement. It sits in escrow. We screw up, go record it. You get your house back. No foreclosure expense, no nothing.
Oh, so it's already sitting there. So basically, they just go there to escrow, and basically, I want that, and you take the house back without having to call you or anybody.
I found out there's like 1, maybe 2 states that you can't do that. Don't ask me why. Maybe some investors screwed that up too, but you can't do it in a couple of states. So the other way around that is do the contract for deed or the land contract, because then again, their attorney can sit on it in escrow until you fulfill your agreement. It sits in escrow.
Yeah, that's awesome,
Dude, you're shooting fire right now. This is like, honestly, like some good detailed technical stuff.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I appreciate all the openness too, Chris. Yeah, because like, I mean, selfishly, we have a situation right now that we're looking at where we're looking at buying a small portfolio from an investor here in town, and sub 2 is the only way that it really makes sense. And the number one question that he asked was, well, is this going to show up on my debt to income, like my personal debt afterwards, which, I said, yeah, it will. And so we've been trying to figure out how to navigate that, but it sounds like this mirror second position might be the solution, at least a little bit.
What kind of deals, if you don't mind? Let's walk through it if you want to.
So
it's single family, multi.
It's a portfolio of duplexes. So it's several duplexes, and they all have individual loans on them, all with the same bank. It's a bank that we use coincidentally, which does help. Basically, for it to make sense from a cash flow perspective for us, and I guess just for a deal in general, with current rates, like we would not be able to pay him the amount that he needs to get out of the deal for it to make sense for him to sell it. The only way that it does is for us to buy basically sub 2 at the current market rates, right? So we would bring, we'd raise money to bring for the down payment to get his equity out of it, and then we would take over his 4% mortgages, which are way better than the 8% that we would get.
Are they all separate deeds?
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing that comes to mind, obviously you have all separate deeds, number one. But number two, that's good because there's no blanket. But the only other thing I'm thinking of is if it's that local and you both are dealing with that bank and it's kind of like the local bank, you might definitely want to think about putting that sub 2, yes, but put it with a contract for deed or a land contract so you're not raising red flags.
Sorry, say that one more time. Put that in.
So buy it with a land contract or contract for deed, installment contract. In other words, the deed sits in escrow.
Okay.
So the bank, we've talked to our banker and they're saying that they would be cool with us assuming it because we both have a really good standing.
But assuming it means, I can tell you, unless I'm wrong, that assuming it means they're going to take your credit and you're going to sign on it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll let you assume it.
Yeah. Yes, that's what we
loans are like that too. They'll let you assume.
You.
I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to go on the hook.
Because you're basically taking that loan
you're going to be on it personally.
Loan. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And again, because of the crash, I don't care how good it sounds. I don't care if you have 840 credit or whatever it goes up to. Don't do it.
So I guess we haven't been bit yet because we have like $10 million worth of debt that we're we'll sign on at this point. So
not to work away from that, guys.
Just another drop in the bucket, I guess. But so I guess on that, so with doing it with a land contract, so basically it would stay in escrow, the deed would, and then doing that, do we still get like the tax benefits? Like
ownership benefits. Good question. Very good question. But see, Mike, what's interesting about that is that's like the attorney thing. Like our CPA, Paul deals with a lot of our associates, a lot of our students. He's read my book. Like he understands everything about what we're doing. So just make sure you have a good CPA. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Because in that situation, we don't take title, or do we take title?
It technically, you everything gets signed, but it sits in escrow and doesn't get recorded.
Oh, man, fascinating. Yeah, you're just like,
Mike is just curious. I love it. Mine too, dude. I'm like,
Washington State. We have students there. So you can, when we get off air, I'll give you my cell. You text me. I'll give you our local attorney, and I'll tell her there's no fee or anything. Just take these guys on as a client, and she'll talk.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. Sweet. Because it's something that has definitely been on our mind, and I'll talk to you afterwards too. But we'd love to have you come and maybe do a talk with our instant investor program, and you can talk about the course and stuff that you run as well, the group that you have. That would be
happy to. Myself or my son-in-law Zach, who also owns the company with me, we'll be happy to. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So,
cool.
Anyways.
It's funny because like we talk about this, Mike and I feel pretty versed. Like we understand this creative stuff. We're not experts, but like you're taking to another detail level where like there's a lot of confidence when you're speaking about this, that there's just, because there are always, when you see some of the gurus online pitching this, there's always these little gaps or always some things that you're like, I don't know what you're saying there is legal.
Here's the thing, guys. It's because, and I'm sorry, I'm not poo-pooing anyone in particular. They're probably all on my podcast as my guest, but a lot of the people in our industry are great marketers. They are. Yes. And so I talked to a guy that you guys would know, I won't mention his name, but he said to me after a show, we got off air and I said, hey, how about we like refer your coaching clients to me? He said, coaching clients? He said, Chris, I know how to market. I sell $7 or $8 million a year in courses. And I don't care what happens after that. He literally said, I don't care. All we care is the opposite. Wow. We suck at marketing. We want to do deals.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful. The gurus, they leave gaps on purpose.
Doesn't surprise me.
I'm pretty sure I know who that is.
Yeah.
But I won't call him out. No. There's a certain individual that we do like to hate on because he lives a lot of gaps and he's all smoke and mirrors.
There's a few.
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
But no, so that's like the stuff that you're working on is like next level. Sorry for the lull in the conversation too, listeners. Is actually, I think this is the first time that we've had a guest that's had me pondering to the point that I'm falling behind the conversation. So no, it's
all good.
Stumped. No, it's super, super cool though. So I guess one one more thing I want to talk about on this, and this is something that we find. So like our main business, we're direct to seller. So we do a lot of wholesale, fix and flips, like all of our stuffs are bought at huge discounts. And the nature of direct to seller marketing, we typically end up dealing with people that are, I would say, less than sophisticated, right? How do you pitch this to people who, they're not necessarily like bad financially, or they are, their houses can be okay. They're just not like financially minded enough to be able to explain this to them. So like, what does this pitch look like to a lot of sellers? Like what sort of basic tips do you have for that?
Okay. So maybe surprising you guys, but it's not a pitch. And here's why. Well, let me tell you what it is first and not what it's not. It's a truly listen and find out what the seller's challenged by way of the market not bringing them, like my building, because he wasn't challenged financially. It was debt free, this building. So why did he sell to me? Because he wanted it for tax and trust and planning estate reasons, and he wanted full price. Yep. Or listen intently for not just what they can't get accomplished, but what their pain is. Divorced. I got a second house. We just bought a house in California where the guy had a $6,000 payment on a new house, and this one was $4,000. He's bleeding. So my student bought it. But my point is, he didn't pitch him. He found out what the heck was going on and can we solve it? There's some calls where price doesn't come up the first call. My students go, because we share calls. Hey, I heard you call my seller for me. You didn't talk about price. We're not there yet. I got to find out what the problem is first. And if I can't solve it, I'll tell them. So we're solving problems or helping them accomplish a goal they otherwise can't accomplish. When you do that, trust me, price, terms goes away.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I guess I understand that because that's our big focus as well, as solving people's problems. Like, cause like on the wholesale side, very rarely are we like getting a house like, oh, 60 cents on the dollar. Like it's an easy transaction. There's always like title issues, divorces, squatters, like whatever. Yeah. But it's more the like, how do you put that in layman's terms? What you're trying to do.
Right. Can you use sub two? Can you use the word wrap? Assuming all these things
I got you guys. Okay.
Gets them complicated.
No, you can't use the vernacular. Yeah. Like I'll hear my students, we critique calls to help them get better faster. And I'll hear them say something like sandwich lease or a wrap. I'm like, oh, I cringe. No. So here's what you say with a sub two. Ready? Hey, Mike, so you have pain and you need it solved. All right, Mike, then what I can do is I can buy your house. And let's say you're a month behind. I catch up your arrears. I can buy your house. And the loan will stay in your name, though, until I cash it out. When some don't, but some will say, when are you going to cash out? When I cash my buyer out, I don't know. My intent is a few years, but I'll just keep you posted along the way. Like, I solved their problem first and foremost. The rest is nonchalant. I got your problem solved. Now, what do we need to move on? What do we need to know to move on?
Yeah. Too simple. Like, I think that's the problem is, that's how I know you're good at sales too, because you keep it simple. You don't say a lot. Yeah. And that's something that we're always working with, like our sales guys, and even with their own sales pitches, tend to talk too much. You're trying to explain it and justify what you're saying.
Yeah.
When they don't want to know. They don't want to know and they don't care. Yeah. And the more that you say, they feel like they're getting lectured, right? And that's like the easiest way to turn off enough market.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is go, I hear hundreds of calls. Let me tell you how I buy. They don't give a shit how you buy. How about ask them a bunch of questions and find out why they need you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's so simple.
That's super good stuff. Awesome, man. Well, do you have anything else from you, Dan? Like, I mean, I could keep going on random questions all day, but then we're just gonna get into like so in the weeds.
I know I want to get so in the weeds right now, but I think that's a different conversation for us than on the podcast.
So
this is great. Good stuff.
But yeah, so anything else from you, Dan? Before we wrap it up? Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chris. This has been really, really good. I guess really quick, before we go into the end of show questions, talk about your education. You've talked about your students, those sort of stuff. What exactly is that, and what does that look like?
It's interactive, meaning I alluded to the fact that we just want to do deals, right? We don't market a bunch of crap. So but I'm big on free, you guys. Like, there's a lot of nice, cool niches in real estate. I'm not so naive to think it's only creative. I'm biased, but so I want to give you guys, your tribe can get a couple free books of our best sellers. And it's not one of those offers that says put in $5 for shipping or $10. It's free. We're going to ship you a hard copy book. Just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/collecting keys. You'll get a free set. Just give us a couple of weeks. You also get a free ticket to our event. So it's pretty cool. You'll get that as part of the books. They'll come physically. Yeah, I think that's it as far as that goes. And then there's a free master's class. You guys can put it in the show notes. If you can deal with listening to me with my New England speed for another hour, go to smartrealestatecoach.com/master's class. That way it's all free. You decide if you want to go forward. If you do, great. If you don't, great.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll say too, thanks for all the books that you sent as well.
Oh, you got them too. Awesome.
Yeah, I got them all.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and they're good stuff. I've flipped through them a little bit, but actually like high quality books as well, which I appreciate. Sometimes we get free books from guests, and I'm like, this looks like it was made like some a little bit sketchy.
So thanks for showing that.
Yeah. So go check us out on YouTube, guys. You can see the handful of books he has. He got all sorts of them, so I'd recommend it for sure.
It's awesome.
Awesome, Chris. Well, good stuff. So going to the end of show questions here as we wrap up the show.
Sure.
First question, which is always the fun one. I'm sure you have some good ones. You've been in real estate for so long, but what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be a, crazy situation with like a tenant or a seller. This can be a big win. It could be a big loss. The only rule is it can't be anything about like, finding dead people at the property, because we had a bunch of those in a row and it just got super bummer.
Well, knock on wood, I haven't yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do a win because that's all
good.
fluff and people do that all the time. I'll tell you a story that I haven't told in a while. So we had a portfolio of college properties at one time. My buddy and I, he's a plumber. He did the field work, and we got up to like 13 multis over by Holy Cross College in Massachusetts. Super, super lucrative. We had it dialed in. I got a call one night, maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. He's a plumber. Keep that in mind. And then he said, "Hey, Chris, I went to the house today. This house we have in the basement had 2 feet of sewage. And if anyone finds out, this place will be shut down. We have 3 floors of kids in it above."
No.
So he said, "You're coming with me, and we're going to start shoveling the shit out of the basement." So we wrapped our feet with bags and put towels around our head, and we began. Now, my wife said, it doesn't smell. I said, yeah, I can smell it for like 2 weeks. It's in my nose. And then 2 weeks later, it happened again. And he ended up finding it the problem. So I'll fast forward, but it ended up being roots that got in the pipe, and we didn't know it when we snaked it. So then my plumber buddy ended up fixing it and putting a new pipe and all that stuff. But twice this happened, and we had to do it in the middle of the night.
Oh my God. Oh, nothing like shoveling shit in the middle of the night. Oh my gosh. That's definitely a first for us. I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, right.
That's a first of
yeah. That's crazy. How long ago was that?
That's crazy.
Let's see. We bought those between 95 and 2006. So probably around 2000-ish, 2001.
Yeah. Okay, man, that's crazy. That's one that will definitely stay with you. That is a first for sure.
I probably still smell it. Just telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's funny.
Exactly.
All right.
That's great.
Second question: what is the number one tip you would give to a small-time investor a new investor looking to get started, or to a small-time investor looking to take their business to the next level?
I'll give you 3 quick steps. I don't care if you're in real estate or not, this works. First, pick a niche that you can get behind passionately. Like you like some niches deal with people more than like our niche. You got to want to help people. Mm-hmm. Second, find someone in that niche that has been through some cycles. It's scary if you don't do that. Trust me, because you're going to hit some skid marks and some speed bumps, and you got to be able to lean on someone and go, "Hey, how do I do this?" And third, this is the hardest part. Put the blinders on for 3 years once you get that person, because there is a lot of shiny objects. There are a lot of so you need to stay the course for 3 years. I had Brian Tracy on my podcast at age 80 something, and he said, no, it's 7 years, but I'm sticking with my at least 3 minimum with blinders on and stay in your niche. And when I say pick a person, by the way, it's not just someone who's been through cycles. That's important, but someone who morally and ethically aligns with you. Because I know plenty, and you guys probably do too, plenty of successful people that screwed their marriage up or their kids or something else because they just were too focused on the business. That to me is important. It might not be important for some listeners, but that's important for me.
I love that. I think that's such a key point that so many people miss is, they try to learn from people that present like a certain lifestyle, but they may not necessarily vibe with. And you got to
rent a car and the rent a plane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's no morals behind it that even come close to aligning with yours, and it's just not.
Yeah, I've been married 37 years this August,
dangerous.
and so that's not by accident, right? So it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Right.
super, super good advice.
Great
All right,
advice.
Chris, so last question, and you already answered this a little bit with your group, but you can plug any more specifics on that you want. But where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you if you'd like them to do
Yeah,
so?
just those 2 links I gave, and the general site is smartrealestatecoach.com. I'll give you guys a link that you can get on a call with me. I seriously haven't done this in a year. Yeah. But if you just say in the form you fill out, it's free. If you say in the form, Chris said I could speak with him, I'll do my best to personally get on with you. We have great staff and family, but it's smartrealestatecoach.com/action, and that'll get you a free strategy call. And it's not just like people say, I want to pick your brain. It's not that. It's come with, hey, here's where I am in life. Here's where ideally, if I could paint a picture or wave a wand I'd like to be, and here's my block, and I'll help you with that block. That's what the call's for.
Yeah. I love it.
That's cool. That'll be so valuable. Definitely call.
Absolutely.
Definitely
And we'll put all those links in the show notes, guys. So you can go grab them there, and then they will also be on our website at clickandkeyspodcast.com. So you go check that out. Anyways, Chris, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was super, super cool to meet you. And I love the stuff that you're doing. Like I said, this was the first show that we've done, and coming up on 100 now, where I have literally been like at a loss for words at some points because you were throwing out it's like such good stuff. You had me.
I appreciate that.
I
appreciate that. So. Glad I can help.
Yeah. So awesome, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this show with Chris. Seriously reach out to him. He is a wealth of knowledge if you can't tell. And the crazy thing is like we just scratched the surface of what he's capable of in his knowledge base. So absolutely reach out to him. And besides that, share this episode with anybody who might find it interesting. And if anyone's a real estate investor that you know, they will find this interesting. And if they don't, then you need to educate them on the value of creative finance and the stuff that Chris is working on. Besides that, guys, if you want to learn how to start generating off-market leads yourself so that you can have opportunities to use the tactics that Chris talked about here, you can go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free and get our free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads. And besides that, everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.